after several days of rocket fire into Israel, about 130 rockets, and several airstrikes back, the Israelis have pressed the button to escalate it much further. They said on Monday, they said to Hamas, we hold you responsible for the rockets coming out, even though Islamic Jihad and others were the ones that were firing them. We hold Hamas responsible, and that explains why they've gone after Hamas targets. Now, these are airstrikes coming in, we think, from F-16s. They are multiple, as well as the one that struck the Hamas commander, Jabari, who the Israelis have been after for a decade. I think some of the underneath these plumes are Hamas police stations. And again, I go back to that thing that on Monday they said, we hold you accountable. And that they're going after the Hamas infrastructure again. Unconfirmed reports say at least 2 rockets have subsequently been fired back into Israel, but there's going to be a lot more. There's about 1 million Israelis who have gone to the shelters, I suspect, by now. The schools will be closed tomorrow. The whole area, within about 40
So they would have been in the line of fire, and they would have moved into the bunkers?
Yes, the Israelis that live within a certain radius of the Gaza border are within range of rocket fire from Gaza. The maximum I will make it is about 1 million people. The problem for the people of Gaza is that although the F-16s and other strikes are relatively precise, they are not entirely precise, and it's quite possible there's going to be civilian casualties. Now, the Israelis are going to do this for several hours minimum, possibly a few days, and it depends on how many rockets come back. There's a certain level of rockets that come back in revenge, in retaliation, and there's a certain amount of damage they do. If any of the rockets that come back, because they're indiscriminate, they just fire them and hope they hit the towns and cities of Israel, but they don't have guidance on them. If any of them get lucky from the Hamas perspective and kill some Israelis, I think that will trigger a ground invasion.
But won't the Hamas fighters, Hamas military, be in their own bunkers, at least for now? They
will, but some of them will be out there trying to, because they have to be seen as the resistance. If they are seen to be people that hide, I mean, they hid underneath the hospitals in Operation Cast Lead in 2008, but they were fighting as well. If they don't do any retaliation whatsoever, it's hard for them to present themselves to the people of Gaza as we are the resistance, we are the ones who challenge and take on the Israelis. So they have to fire back, and they will, and they may already have done so. As I said, it's a terrible, awful, gruesome mathematical game that is also played as well as politics, and that is the number of rockets that now come back and what damage they cause. And if they kill any Israelis, I think it will trigger a ground invasion before the weekend. If they can somehow, the Egyptians, take the heat out of this, and the Israelis think we've made our point, and Hamas can hide behind some sort of declaration that our Egyptian brothers have brought peace, it can be calmed down. Otherwise, once the rockets start going back, the Israelis are going to keep going. After 2008 Operation Cast Lead, the rocket fire fell down to a few dozen in the first year. The next year it was a few hundred. The year after that it was a few hundred more. And since that, each year there's been more and more rockets coming back. This has been coming a year. I'm not in the least bit surprised it's happened. It was only a question of when, because at some point, when the rocket fire level reached a certain point, the Israelis were going to go back in really hard. This is the first level, Kay. The second level is the ground invasion, which they are preparing for. I believe the reservists are being mobilized, and that's the calculation that Hamas has to make. How much retaliation are we going to put back the other way?